part of our
Episode 1.2?
Yeah. Yes, this is episode 1.2. And so this is the true crime section.
This is the true crime section. This is where I come in with all my research.
And if we sound rusty, although we've done one episode, this is the first time we've done the true crime part.
Yeah. Sound rusty.
Rusty.
We wouldn't be rusty if we sound rookie.
Oh no, right, rookie, that was the word. If we sound like we have no fucking clue what we're doing, it's because we're recording both parts on the same day.
But for you, the listeners, it's 1 week on, I think. Have we established that?
No, yes, yeah. Yeah, no, we're going to do 1 week on.
Yeah, okay, lovely.
Great.
So, welcome to episode 1, part 2.
Episode 1, part 2.
Episode 1, part 2. True crime behind the criminal minds.
Yes, indeed. Great. So this is Claire's part.
Okay, so, well, obviously, as we stated in the first half, episode 1.1, the whole purpose of this podcast was to then obviously do the rewatch and then talk about the true crime that inspired that episode.
So is it like, so have you found like a killer that's like similar to the killer, or is that not how you've...
Well, I kind of in my mind just assumed that the writers were taking inspiration from real life.
Yeah.
But this was a really tricky episode for my research because it turns out that actually there wasn't one particular serial killer that this one seemed to be based off.
Okay, right.
But there are many mentions throughout the episode of the famous serial killer Ted Bundy.
Yes, okay, yeah.
So we all know who Ted Bundy is. Yeah. You've heard of Ted Bundy, I'm assuming.
I think I've seen a documentary.
There was a documentary. There was also a dramatisation starring Zac Efron.
Do you know what? I've never watched it, and I really should watch it.
It's all right. It's pretty good, actually. Yeah, it's a nice little dramatisation.
Did Zac do a good job?
Yeah, I think Zac really grew into his acting career the older he got.
Him. Well, I guess I was going to say moved away from the heartthrob roles, but I guess Ted Bundy, to some people, was a bit of a heartthrob.
I mean, that was kind of part of his deal, wasn't
Uncomfortably.
it? Yes, unfortunately for them.
Oh, God.
I mean, it is possible that Bundy was some of the inspiration for the writers on this episode.
Okay.
So I was debating going in depth on that.
Right.
Just going straight in hard, first episode, talk about Ted Bundy, let's get a really hardcore one out the way.
Yeah.
But he's really notorious and he's very well known and he's so well documented and there's dramatisations about him that I thought it would actually be more interesting to start our podcast off a little differently.
Yeah, I love that.
Instead of going straight in with the big names.
Okay.
But just for the listeners that maybe don't know who Ted Bundy is.
Oh, great. We're going to get a bit of background.
Little bit of background. I'm just going to quickly say... so Bundy's MO, which is...
Mission... Oh, no, wait. No. Modus operandi.
Yes!
I was going to say Mission Impossible.
You're really going to have to do better at the terminology.
I know, sorry. I really fucked that one up.
So Bundy's Mission Impossible. Bundy's MO is that he likes the brunette, petite, Caucasian woman, generally aged between 12 and 26, which 12 is pretty young.
12 is young.
Yeah, 12 to 26, normally of middle class background. He liked to humiliate and rape his victims.
Oh, God.
Often with objects lying around the house.
Oh, fuck. I don't think I knew that.
Did you not?
No.
I learned this in the dramatisation, to be honest.
Grim.
So he would strangle them and then bludgeon them with a crowbar. Also, I did do a bit of research for the status of this, so it wasn't just like doing this from memory.
Yeah, God, he was brutal.
He was brutal, yeah. And he was, like we just said, he was known for his looks, which is often how he would lure his victims, even when the news was reporting there was a serial killer at large.
Yeah,
so, like, these women knew there was a serial killer, but he would be like I think I remember one scene in the Zac Efron one where he, like, was pretending to have a broken arm, so he had his arm in a sling, and he's trying to put stuff into the, like, heavy stuff into the back of his car.
Oh, which is a bit Silence of the Lambs.
Very Silence of the Lambs, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then, so, like, a young girl goes, like, he obviously does it in front of her on purpose, and so she goes over to give him help, and then he's like, yep.
Oh, God, don't like it.
Hit you around the head,
oh
chuck
my
you
God,
in the car.
have I ever told you about the guy who, like, sorry, like, lured me into his garage?
Eve,
but,
what are you talking about?
Like,
no.
genuinely, you saying that just really, I was like, I would never help a stranger. This guy, like, oh my God, I've literally just, this is like a recovered memory.
Okay, tell me.
So when I lived in Manchester, I used to, on my street, at the end of my street was like a garage where a guy, it was like I think it was an official car garage, but like just basically it was like, but it looked like just somebody's one door garage, but it had decals and whatever on the thing, so it had a sign, and it was like he fixed up cars.
Yeah.
And I would always cycle to work, and he would always like call out to me and like say good morning and stuff. And then one day he like stopped me and was like, I've got some like cycling gear that you can have. Have I never told you this story?
No, this is news to me.
Yeah, he was like, I've got some cycling gear that you can have. And I was like, oh, right. And he was like, yeah, it's like a cycling jacket. I got like free merch from like the Olympics or something. And I was like, oh, right. And he was like, oh, come in here and like you can and get it. But the way he did it, right, I feel so stupid. But he let me enter. He was like, oh, so here you go. And like let me walk past him. So the garage door was shut, but there was like a door through the garage door.
No, Eve, what are you talking about?
And he like opened it to let me step in. And as soon as I stepped over the threshold, I was like, he's behind me.
What have you done? Yeah,
and
this is when you're yelling at the TV going, don't go in there.
I know. And then but then he did walk past me and he picked up this jacket and he handed it to me. But I remember taking a step back towards the door because I thought I don't really want him to block the door.
Yeah.
And so, but I could tell he like handed it to me and then he was I don't know if I'm like making this up in my head, but it felt like he was trying to get past me.
Back to the door.
And I don't know. I don't think he was trying to like gonna murder me or rape me or anything.
But you could also be like fabricating that part of the memory because you've got a fear response.
But I think what he was trying to do was that he wanted to keep talking to me.
Yeah.
And so maybe it wasn't like really dark and scary, but I think he like wanted to keep chatting. And so he wanted to give me a gift and then keep chatting. So he didn't want me to leave too soon. But I remember basically I just took it and I was like, I've really actually got to get home. And I just left. And I remember telling my mum about it and she was like, can you please start cycling a different way to work?
Yeah.
And I did. I used to go down the other end of the street and then loop back because she was like, please don't walk past his garage anymore.
100%. I agree with your mum.
Oh God, that was such a recovered memory. Sorry.
Fuck me, Eve. You're literally you're the dumb girl that we're all yelling at through the TV.
Oh,
don't go in that dark garage through the door.
Yeah, fuck. I literally have not thought about that in years.
I'm so glad you're here so that we can do this true crime podcast together.
Anyway, sorry, back to your research. God.
So back to Ted Bundy, who we are not talking about in this episode.
Oh yeah, sorry.
So maybe one day we'll get into a discussion on Ted Bundy, because I mean, I can say for certain he gets mentioned a lot, so I don't know. I've not actually Googled to see if there is an episode that was based on him. But if not, I'm sure we'll have an opportunity in 15 seasons to talk more in depth about Ted Bundy.
Delve in depth.
So for the sake of this episode, I wanted to discuss another killer which is mentioned all the way throughout.
Okay.
The lipstick killer.
Oh shit. Okay.
You mentioned this in the first part of our podcast.
Part one.
They, you know, the sign that comes up on her computer, the note that comes up.
Stop me before I kill again.
Yeah. Which actually says, for heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself.
Okay.
And if you notice, Gideon pans over to the picture which he has framed.
Yes.
And it says William Heirens, 1945, and the picture is of that message written in blood on a wall.
Okay.
And it's from one of Heirens's victims.
time.
You are about to find out.
How exciting. So Heirens is the real person. So they do really overlap in the show between like real killers and fictional.
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's making me love it even more.
They mention Heirens, don't know if you remember, when Gideon's talking to Richard, Skinny Richard Kid.
Skinny Richard, yeah.
Yeah. Because he finds his thesis book, and he's like, I have to talk to... And in the book is the newspaper cutting of Gideon's story arc we've not got to yet.
Got you. So Richard must have sent the virus that
Richard's
did the notes.
tech guy, yeah. He sent the virus that put that sign up there. And he mentions Heirens there as well.
Okay.
Saying Heirens said... Because the guy is... Richard's talking about dissociative identity disorder.
Right.
And saying how Gideon debunked multiple personalities.
And is Heirens... I imagine you're about to tell me.
Yes. In that episode... I can tell you this part because it's in the episode. Richard says Heirens claimed that there was a man in his head called George who told him to do all the killings.
Wow. Okay.
Fascinating.
Oh my gosh.
So that's the first. So we hear about... That's everything we hear about him in the show.
Okay.
The media dubbed this guy the lipstick killer.
Okay. Creepy.
Okay. Because I lied when I said blood on the wall. It wasn't blood on the wall.
Love that. Okay.
Lipstick
Correction.
on the wall.
It was actually lipstick.
Not so sinister.
Okay, great.
But it was lipstick on the wall. But it was a lipstick on the wall of one of his murder victims.
Okay.
Okay.
Creepy. Was that was like a body on that bed cut out of that image?
No, so the lipstick was written on the wall of the living room, I believe.
Okay.
Whereas the body was elsewhere.
Elsewhere, okay.
So, the lipstick killer's crimes.
Let's go.
Let's talk about this.
Give
This
it to
is
me.
actually, I thought, it's going to be, I'm just going to look up some true crime that's kind of similar to what happened in the TV show. We are about to go on a ride. I did not get what I expected.
Oh my god.
The lipstick killer was active in Chicago, Illinois in 1945.
Okay.
/46.
Okay.
But actually, there's only 3 cases that have been linked to the lipstick killer.
3 victims.
Yeah, 3 victims, 3
Right,
cases.
yeah,
Victims, which is partly what makes it incredibly interesting.
Okay.
So the first we've got in June 1945, we've got 43-year-old Josephine Ross.
Okay.
In December 1945, we've got 32-year-old Frances Brown.
Mm-hmm.
And then in January 1946, this is where it gets a bit weird, we've got 6-year-old Susan Degnan.
Oh, Susan.
Poor Susan.
Poor
Susan? Suzanne? How do you know when it's...
I think Suzanne would have an E on the end.
Suzanne.
I think that's Suzanne.
Is that Suzanne?
Yeah.
And Susan is Susan.
Don't ask me to spell things, Clara. I couldn't spell genius.
Well, I want to do this young girl some...
No, so I think that's Suzanne.
Suzanne. Okay.
Poor Suzanne. 6
So
years
6-year-old.
old. 6.
Okay. Which is interesting because bear in mind, you've got a 43-year-old, a 32-year-old, and a 6-year-old.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Which very different.
Yeah, that's strange.
So the first one, Josephine Ross, was found in her home and she was dead from multiple stab wounds to the neck.
Oh god.
Her skirt had been wrapped around her neck and her wounds had been taped shut.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. With tape.
Wait, so they'd been taped and then the skirt was on top of the tape?
I guess so.
Oh Jesus. Okay. That's so weird.
The police interviewed her fiance and several of her ex-boyfriends, but they all of them had alibis.
God, poor guys. You'd be like, I didn't do it.
I didn't do it. I
It's
swear
always
it was
the
me.
husband.
It was actually determined that Josephine was killed by an intruder who was there to burgle her.
Okay.
So this person had gone there to burgle the house and then was taken by surprise when they saw Josephine was home.
Oh, unintentional.
So unintentional, surprise, got to attack her now because she's seen me.
Jesus.
Stabs her a bunch of times
Seems like
in the
overkill,
neck.
but yeah.
Seems like overkill, doesn't it? Stabs her a bunch of time in the neck and then wraps her tapes them shut. That's what I find weird.
It's weird. Kind of makes sense that it'd be panic mode because, like, say you like freaked out, stabbed someone in the neck, and then you were just like, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god, and then you're just like, how do I fix this?
Yeah.
You know, and you're just in full blind panic, and then you just start like taping it and covering it in things, and then you fuck off out the house.
It's possible because like he panics, he stabs her a bunch of times, then he's like fuck, so he puts a load of tape on, and then that's why he wraps the skirt around her
to
neck,
hide all the blood
to be like,
and everything.
oh, stop bleeding, oh my god.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't want to say kid, but like adolescent reaction of like, oh my god, I broke this thing and now I need to like fix it.
Yes, very interesting.
God, I'm like basically Gideon at this point.
Very interesting profiling. But then nothing was taken, so whoever did it didn't burgle the house in the end.
Okay.
So at the time, the police assumed that the suspect just panicked and then left without taking what they were there to take.
Okay.
Which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But like, you know, ruled out all the known men to the victim.
Okay.
And then they were like, oh, I feel like they kind of were like grasping at straws, like, well, maybe he just was there to burgle her and then panicked. But it does seem like a very panicked killing. Yeah,
it does seem like a common trait though, that like your first thought isn't always like serial killer, crazy serial killer. It's like, you know, something that just happened. That
well, at the
like...
time, this was like the first case as well.
But, okay, yeah. So it wasn't at this point like serial murders. Okay.
Also, in 1945, the term serial killer didn't exist.
Oh, good fact. When was the first time?
The 70s.
Ted Bundy?
I don't know if Bundy was the actual case, but it was an FBI profiler who started utilising the term serial killer. He was also the same guy that was trying to make, I've forgotten his name. It's in the TV show Mindhunter, if you've ever watched that.
Which we aren't reviewing.
Played by Jonathan Groff. I don't know his name. I've only ever actually seen the first episode of that, and then I got bored and moved on.
Yeah, too much.
That's my review.
There you go.
That's what that whole TV show is about. But also, I just know that from being a fan of Criminal Minds and looking up profiling.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then he like.
Well, maybe we'll come across the first ever case in
maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know. So that was Josephine Ross.
Okay.
R.I.P. Then. Sorry. Then we've got who was next? Frances Brown.
Okay.
So she was next, 32 years old. So this is about 6 months later. This is in December of the same year. Her head was also wrapped up, but this time it was wrapped up in towels.
Okay.
And it just says
Jesus, I thought you were going to say tape. The idea of having your whole head. I can't even.
No, thank you. No, thank you.
So, okay, wrapped in towels.
So she was wrapped up in towels. Why didn't I write down where she was stabbed?
I assume the head.
I'm going to assume the same place.
Or do you want me to Google it? What was her name?
Frances Brown.
Actually, I don't want to see pictures. It's fine. We can assume he stabbed her in the head and then wrapped it in towels.
Somewhere in the head neck area.
Gross. Okay.
And then the police. So they couldn't find like any fingerprints, any evidence of burglary, but again they assumed it was the same thing, a burglar that got startled.
This was in Chicago?
Chicago, Illinois. Okay, yeah.
Both Chicago.
Both were in Chicago, yeah.
And at this point, do you know, do they think it's the same burglar who just fucked up twice, or two different?
They don't know because then they come across the message, which was scrawled on the living room wall in Frances Brown's own lipstick, which is the message that said, "For heaven's sake, catch me before I kill more. I cannot control myself." So
intense. Okay.
Essentially, it just seems like they had 6 months apart, two incredibly similar cases.
Yeah.
The first one's still not solved, but they had burglary on their mind.
Yeah.
Second one, again, startling lack of evidence.
Yeah.
No fingerprints. Was there fingerprints? Yeah, no fingerprints. They didn't find any evidence of burglary and absolutely no hint of who the murderer could be. So they jumped, I think, because they saw that message that said, "I've done this before."
Yeah.
They were like, well, he probably went in to steal shit and then she was home. So panicked, stabbed her.
Even with the note, they still were like, burglar.
Because they saw, I think, the note when they said, "Oh, he's done this before." Oh yeah, 6 months ago we had one that was really similar to this.
So they're not thinking his motivation is murder. They think his motivation is burglary that ends in murder.
That's
kind of dumb, but okay, fine.
Which is potentially why I can see, like, in their mind, there was nothing within the 6 months because he had successful burglaries in those 6 months and didn't have to kill people.
That seems strange. Seems like a strange conclusion to come to, but
it does.
It was the 40s.
It was the 40s, and that is why he got dubbed as the lipstick killer.
Okay.
And it was all over the media.
Can you even imagine, like, just opening the newspaper and it's like, the lipstick killer. Wait, where was it? Chicago?
Extra.
You know,
we know about it.
The lipstick killer strikes again. That is exactly what it was like, I imagine. And then a chimney sweep walks past. Is that the 40s?
Sure, they had chimney sweeps in the 40s.
Definitely did.
They would have done. Okay, so, yeah, all over the place, lipstick killer. And like I said, it was due to the similarities in the cases that the police linked them.
Okay. So they did link them, they just kind of got the wrong motive, weirdly.
Well, you would think... you don't know, I don't know, we don't know. Who's to know?
Who's to know?
Who's to know? And this is what I was actually just saying, is then the term serial killer wasn't invented. Yeah. So they weren't thinking about serial killers, they were just trying to find a guy.
They weren't really thinking about the psychology of killers. They were just like, well, he just wanted to burgle shit and ended up killing. Not he wanted to kill.
Yeah. And like two very similar cases, which I'm guessing Chicago just hadn't had in the past either.
Yeah.
But then we come to our third case, which is
6-year-old Suzanne.
6-year-old Suzanne. Significantly different.
Okay.
So this is where it gets... This is kind of horrible.
Oh god, okay. I'm bracing myself.
Okay, you should. Pick up that wine. Oh, so at about 7:30 in the morning, we're in January 1946, James Degnan discovers that his 6-year-old daughter Suzanne was missing from her bedroom.
Oh no. Super
early in the morning. He gets in touch with the police, who swarm the house and immediately begin searching the entire area. I'm sorry, I'm getting antsy because this isn't very nice. I don't know if I need to put a trigger warning here, actually.
Yeah, okay, trigger warning.
Trigger warning.
Don't listen with kids.
Yeah, child murder, not a pleasant one.
Yeah, okay.
So they found in the house a crumpled ransom note, which was discovered in her room, which demanded $20,000 from the family.
Okay.
It also listed orders not to involve the police and claimed that more orders would follow. But yes, it was the police that found that ransom note. Said more orders would follow.
Why did you leave it crumpled?
Put it somewhere obvious.
Put it on the bed or something.
Write
it in lipstick on the wall.
Why did you take the kid?
To do. Don't take a kid. Don't murder people.
Don't murder
Everything
people.
Is
full stop.
God damn it. Oh god. Okay.
But then the police were like, "Well, we're already searching. We're already here. We found the note. There's nothing we can do. We're not gonna pander to this guy. We're gonna find this kid."
Okay.
So they're searching everywhere. Around 7 p.m. that evening,
oh god. Okay.
a part of Susan's body was found.
No, which part?
You've seen the Jinx, right?
Wait, which one's the Jinx? Oh, Robert
Durst.
Durst?
And how does that begin?
How does that begin?
Well, similar to this. Her head was found...
I mean, that's the most vital part. I thought you were going to be like a foot. So I thought maybe she was still alive, like a la Dexter.
I probably could have gone backwards with this then. Her head was found floating in a sewer near the Degnan home.
Oh.
I don't know why this was noted, but I'm going to say it anyway because it adds to the horrible.
Oh my god, are you going to say something?
The ribbons that were tied in her hair were still there.
Why was she sleeping with ribbons in her hair?
She's 6 years old. She had her
Actually,
hair
didn't
up.
they used to curl your hair with those ribbons? Oh my god, that's so awful.
Her right leg
No.
was found in a storm drain.
Jesus!
Her torso was found in a different storm drain.
Oh
Her left leg was found in a different storm drain.
Jesus Christ.
And her arms were found a month later.
Can you
another
imagine
sewer.
being the person, any of the people who found those?
No, don't, no. No.
Fuck.
No.
That is so awful.
That's horrible. That's absolutely
so
horrible.
Awful.
This one's really icky.
Poor Suzanne.
And also, poor family. That father, that day, like, police are swarming everywhere.
Yeah.
There's a ransom note that would lead you to believe your child is still alive.
I'm very curious, though, how they linked these.
Exactly.
So different. Are we sure that they're linked?
Different cases. Incredibly different. So, at the time, the police were, like, interrogating hundreds of people. Like, obviously, this became a really high-profile case. Like, it's a child, it's dismemberment.
Mm-hmm.
They interrogated hundreds of people. They were handing out polygraph tests, and every now and then they were like, look, we found the guy, but then everyone was eventually released. They couldn't convict. Okay. So they didn't.
But so did they charge anyone with it? Okay.
The coroner said, and this is important, the coroner said that the cuts were made with basically like surgical
precision.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So either the coroner profiled somebody with either a medical background or potentially a butcher.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we're at. At this point, I'm not going to say that they attributed this to the lipstick killer.
Okay.
At this moment.
Okay, fine.
But they don't find someone for this.
Okay,
for
so
a while.
Basically they're investigating this completely separately to the other women who've been murdered, because I mean, fair enough, they don't seem related in any way.
They don't seem related in any way.
Okay.
But then we get to 6 months down the line.
Okay.
We've got, actually, this is interesting, and I'm gonna say it. I wasn't going to, but I am.
Okay. Yeah.
So They're desperate to find. I put the perpetrator, and then in brackets I was like, unsub.
Yes, exactly.
They're desperate to find the unsub. We're going to say unsub in all our true crime cases.
Okay, great. Yeah. Do we need to explain that? Go back and listen to part 1.
Part 1, if you don't know what an unsub is. Fool.
Keep up. Who starts a podcast at episode 2? That's crazy.
I sometimes do, though. I sometimes start podcasts further down the line because...
If they've got like 500 episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm like, if there's 1 episode or 2 episodes, I'm
going to start
with
number 1.
Okay.
Anyway, what was I saying? So, we've got police desperate to find their unsub. Dun dun dun. And actually, I wanted to note a couple of false arrests.
Oh god, okay, yeah. These scare me. I don't like
scary.
it when the wrong people get put in prison for shit.
No. We've got Sidney Sherman,
Okay.
who was...
A man?
A man.
Okay.
A recently discharged World War II Marine.
Okay.
Very
recent. What are we, 1947?
This is in 1946.
1946, or World War II ended 45?
Well
I know history and stuff.
I know history. World War II, I know loads about. World War One, none.
No, don't know.
Anyway,
why did it start? Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. Franz Ferdinand was involved.
Oh.
Did you not know that?
I did not know that. Okay,
Well,
great.
we've learned that Claire knows more than Eve. That's it though.
I mean,
I'm tapped.
It has something to do with Franz Ferdinand.
Germany was involved again.
Yeah. Oh, I know Germany was involved. I'm not that stupid. Listen, we all have had things.
I say it was involved again. It was the first time.
Yeah, no, that was the first time.
The first time.
That was part 1.
Yeah.
World War part
Hitler
1.
was part 2. Anyway, we've digressed onto it. We're laughing about some very serious shit.
It's difficult because we just talked about child dismemberment, and so we just got to bring it back.
Bring it back.
Okay, Sydney.
Sorry, Sidney Sherman.
Okay.
A recently discharged World War II Marine. So the reason they suspected him is because one of the things that they found in Susan or Suzanne? Why can I not get this? Suzanne.
Yeah.
One of the things they found in Suzanne's room was a handkerchief,
Okay.
which was embroidered with S. Sherman.
Mm.
So they were looking up S. Shermans in the area, and they found a Sidney Sherman, and he was living out of the YMCA.
That is such a
nearby.
classic move, like someone who's like, what is it, unhoused?
Yeah.
Like the PC term there. An unhoused person who's like a vagrant or whatever.
And like not doing great in life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't have their shit together.
World War II vet. Give him a break.
Give him a
I mean,
minute.
Part 1. Part 1. No,
No,
World War II.
2.
Sorry.
You had it. You were correct the first time.
God damn it. Okay.
And then so they go and they're like trying to find him, but then they find out that he's like he'd already left the YMCA unexpectedly, and they're like, oh my Christ, it's this guy. So they're trying to track him down.
Okay.
They find him. He had eloped with his girlfriend before.
Well, that's nice.
Yes, before she was murdered. So
before Suzanne was murdered.
His girlfriend was
I was
murdered.
like,
Sorry.
Jesus, I mean,
I
that
need
was lucky.
more context. Before Suzanne was murdered, he and his girlfriend eloped. They weren't even in the same state.
Okay, so they were getting married somewhere else.
They were getting married somewhere else.
Okay, fine. So they didn't. Did they arrest him?
No,
they just tracked him down.
They tracked him down, and he was like,
"Oh
yeah, here's my alibi. I was
signing my marriage certificate."
And then through I don't want to say DNA. I don't know if DNA was around. I'm not told how they found out. It just says it was later found out. Well, I mean, I probably could have done more research and found it on another thing, but I didn't.
Listen, we only had so much time.
I only did my notes this morning. But they later found out that the owner of the handkerchief was somebody called Airman Seymour Sherman.
Erman Seymour Sherman. So Erman Sherman.
Oh, mate.
Erman Sherman.
I didn't think about that.
Very unfortunate.
Oh, parents didn't give you a chance.
His name is Erman, and also Erman.
It's not even Erman, it's Airman. AIR men. Airman.
I've never heard that name before.
Airman Sherman. So Airman Seymour Sherman. Wait, it was his handkerchief.
No, sorry. Are you sure he wasn't like an airman, like a pilot?
Very probably. Because
like airman, and his name was Seymour Sherman. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. is
That makes a lot of sense because he also had an alibi. He wasn't in the country
because he was flying a plane. Was he actually a pilot?
I guess so.
Oh my god, that's so great. Yes.
Oh. Fucked it.
Okay, so Seymour Sherman,
but it was his handkerchief.
Okay. Oh, what?
It was his handkerchief.
Why
and
did it get
he
there?
verified that it was his handkerchief.
Well, don't do that.
But he says he could evidence being out of the country.
Oh, so like maybe the killer pickpocketed him and took his hanky.
However, he was like, I don't know how it got there.
What the
Yeah. So
that is so unfortunate if you're Erman Sherman.
If you're Erman Sherman, oh my Christ, that is my handkerchief. Oh my stars.
Oh my stars.
But then the police just disregarded the handkerchief as a piece of evidence.
Well, that's very weird.
Yeah, claiming that it was.
I don't trust this.
Coincidental that it was there.
I don't trust that. Okay,
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I can't believe that. I think the handkerchief, like, you've got to, because he might not have been in the country, but he might have had something to do with the guy who did it.
Oh yeah, no, I forgot he wasn't in the country.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
that
don't
is a
know.
good alibi, but yeah, that's very weird though. Okay.
But your handkerchief is found. How does a grown man's handkerchief, who has nothing to do with the family,
In a child's bedroom.
in a child's bedroom?
I mean,
Who's just
all I
been
can
dismembered.
think is that the. Well, okay, so
You
if
just
this
don't.
killer.
You just don't disregard that piece of evidence.
No, but I think it's like a red herring. Is that what they call it? Where like the killer has like
Okay.
pickpocketed that guy,
Yeah.
taken that, and been like, I'm gonna drop that at the scene.
Right. Okay. That's very sophisticated thinking.
Because it's like, what's a better clue than a handkerchief with initials
this
on it?
is interesting because that is a very sophisticated thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he like knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And probably the note was like another one where he's like, I'm going to pretend as a ransom.
Pretend that this kid could still be alive.
As a way of delaying the like search for the kid. But actually he always knew he was going to...
He'd already chopped her up.
Yeah, but then maybe he saw that they were ignoring the note and maybe he thought he would have more time.
Who's to say?
I mean, Jesus, how do you like dismember and then dump all the body part like within 12 hours?
Within 12 hours with the police searching the area.
Yeah, that is so intense.
Because it says as well, the dad found at 7:30 in the morning that his daughter wasn't there. It doesn't say when
so
she was taken.
Sometime in the night. Okay.
I don't know if they had. I don't know how
Well,
they
maybe
would
24
determine
hours
that.
then.
Yeah.
Because it
After
usually
she goes to
Yeah, you
bed.
put a kid to bed at like 7.
And then, but then, you normally check on the kids before you go to bed.
And how did they like not hear someone come in? But maybe it was after they were asleep.
So many-
god, it's so awful.
So
Okay.
many things.
Okay.
So they didn't. Either of those guys got like arrested. They were just talked to. This false arrest here leads us a bit more throughout the story. This poor guy, 65-year-old janitor, Hector Verber. Hector was the janitor in the Degnans building. So they didn't even live in like a house. They lived in a
So they're in like an
building.
apartment?
I guess so.
Sorry, this is the parents of Suzanne.
Yeah,
Okay.
Suzanne Degnan.
Right.
So the janitor of the building was 65-year-old Hector Verber.
Okay.
And he was a Belgian immigrant.
Okay.
Okay, so
So
English was not his
so
first
far
language.
we've got an unhoused person and an immigrant.
Yeah.
And they're like, these are our suspects.
These
So
are our
great,
suspects.
Great. Thanks, guys.
Oh, and then Pilot, who has a renowned job.
The airman.
And they're like, oh, actually, this handkerchief links to you, but we're going to disregard the
Yeah,
evidence.
because he's probably a high up military man. Like
Exactly.
pilots are very well respected, so I understand.
And in the 40s, they didn't have, like, flights going overhead every second, did they? So... Anyway, so they've arrested the janitor, even though there were obvious signs that he couldn't have been involved. One, he lacked any of the surgical or butchery skills required to dismember the body in the surgically precise, surgically precise way that the coroner said it was done.
Yeah.
Two, his tenuous at best grasp of the English language meant that he couldn't have written the ransom note.
Poor guy must just be like, I don't know anything. Leave me alone.
Despite all of that,
Oh God.
they held him for 48 hours and they subjected him to, let's say, physical interrogation techniques
That's horrible.
that left him in hospital for 10 days.
No.
One of those techniques being they handcuffed him behind his back, lifted his arms until his toes were barely on the floor.
No.
And he got a permanent injury in his shoulder from this.
No, that is so horrible.
That's awful.
That's so horrible.
They would then beat him, and they starved him for the full 48 hours.
Oh my god.
Then they were like, shit, not him. Released him.
So wait, but he didn't like confess.
Didn't
He wasn't
confess.
like.
No.
Usually that ends in like, and then he wrote a confession.
His janitor union lawyer. No, so the janitors union. He was obviously part of a union, and they got a lawyer involved to be like
To represent him.
Yeah, to represent him.
This
And
is
it was
why we need
lawyer.
unions.
The lawyer was like, he can't even speak or write English.
Yeah.
So he didn't write this note. And you say that someone with butcher skills or surgical skills chopped up this body,
Yeah.
and he's a janitor.
Yeah.
He didn't do this.
Poor guy.
And then they were like, oh shit, yeah, you're right. Released him, and then he filed a lawsuit. The lawyer helped him file a
Fucking
lawsuit.
hope he did.
And he was compensated $15,000 for his experience.
Which
how
I
much
imagine
is that today?
Should we Google it?
Yeah, well, I should have looked that
What,
up.
in 1947?
1946.
15,000.
Whoa.
Okay, guess. I really shouldn't have reacted like that.
Reacted. I'm going to go over $1 million.
Nah, I ruined it.
You overreacted.
I did, I over it. $200,000.
I mean,
that's quite a lot.
It's a lot, but I'm really sorry. If you incorrectly arrest me, hang me up with my arms behind, like the thought of it makes me feel sick. I want more than 200,000. 200,000 is barely getting me a house these days.
Oh, definitely not.
So,
oh god.
Yeah, no,
okay.
I want more than that. So those were the false arrests.
Okay.
That we've got. I think we're pretty much now 6 months down the line. We've had a few false arrests
from Suzanne's
murder. We still don't have arrests for the first 2 murders.
Mm-hmm.
Now remember, they thought the first 2 murders were burglaries that had gone wrong.
Yeah.
We then have William Heirens. Heirens? I think Heirens is how you pronounce it.
Okay.
William Heirens. This guy was 17 years old.
Whoa.
When he
was
was
so young.
It is so young.
Oh wait.
And he was caught fleeing a robbery. You need to stop second guessing yourself.
I'm getting really excited. I'm jumping the gun.
He was caught fleeing a robbery in June 1946.
Right.
Somebody called him. Someone spotted him, called the police, and he was followed by 2 policemen who then cornered him, at which point he pulled out a gun. And there's now 2 sides to this story. Neither have been confirmed. You've got Heirens' side and the police's side.
Okay.
Heirens' account is the wait, I've written it the other way around. The officers claim that Heirens fired at them, and he claims that they fired at him first.
Okay.
But either way, gunshots were had.
Yeah. Love the sound
They
effects.
fired at each other. Nobody was hit, because apparently they're all real bad shots. I read a chase ensued.
Oh, was this on foot?
On foot.
Okay.
An on foot chase.
Yeah. I imagine them like jumping over hedges and like walls. And fences and stuff.
like through the laundry.
And, like, through the laundry. Yeah, getting like all tangled in a sheet.
Yeah.
Like, whipping it up.
And it ended. This is quite funny because Heirens was hit on the head with a flower pot.
No!
By an off-duty police officer who had just come back from the beach and was still in his swimming trunks.
That cannot be true. That's like something out of like a Charlie Chaplin movie.
You jump over the hedge and poof.
I thought you were going to say by like a woman with like one of those like neckerchiefs like tied around her head, and she like leans out of a window smoking a cigarette and like knocks a flower pot down and it lands on his head.
Drop.
But actually a policeman in his underwear his swimming trunks, apologies. That's amazing. How did the policeman in the swimming trunks show up?
Well, I think he was just passing by.
Great. Amazing. Love
He just got home and apparently Heirens probably ran through his garden.
Yeah.
I don't know, I didn't do much research into that.
I was like, honey, who's the guy in the garden? With the sheet wrapped around
him.
him.
My buddies are chasing him.
I'm just going to
be right back.
throw this flower pot on his head. Amazing. That's such a cinematic moment.
So after he wakes up in the hospital,
okay,
he's all stitched up in the head. We get to his interrogation.
Oh god, is it going to be as good as the
17-year-old kid. Okay. So remembering that these policemen are desperate to find a killer of 3 murders that have happened.
Is this going to be really tough to hear?
It's not easy.
Okay.
I think I might have dumbed it down a little bit as well from my research. Maybe I shouldn't have. Okay. So once again, we're going to go with physical interrogation techniques.
I don't like this phrase.
torture? Do you rather I said torture?
No, I don't like any of it.
So, first of all, they would exhaust him. They wouldn't allow him to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
He's still in the hospital. Let me say this.
Why is the hospital okaying this?
In it. So,
Apologies.
he's being exhausted. He's not being allowed to sleep. They're beating him. They're starving him.
And he's got a head injury.
He's got a head injury. He's a minor, 17s. They're not allowing his parents even into the hospital.
Okay.
For about 6 days, they went with, a few beatings, bit of starvation, bit of exhaustion.
Casual torture.
Trying to get him to confess to these murders, which Heirens did not confess to.
Good for him.
So the police are like, yo, nurses, yo, doctor, anything you can do to help us out
and
here?
They were like, yeah, sure, we'll just forget our Hippocratic oath.
Yeah, no oath. In one situation, a nurse poured ether, which I'm assuming is some kind of acid,
I don't know
onto
what ether is.
his genitals.
What?
While he was strapped to the bed. I assume it's acid because it says here, like, it was burning him. Which
ether? This is a pleasant smelling, colourless, volatile liquid that is highly flammable. Why would that be pleasant smelling? I can't imagine it being pleasant. Used as an anaesthetic and as a solvent. Yeah, so, okay. So I guess, kind of like, as an anaesthetic and a solvent. Do you really want that, like, put in your veins to pass out? That's highly flammable. Jesus. Oh, maybe it's like... is that like because they would put people out by inhaling it?
That's chloroform.
Okay. Well, listen, I don't know, but it sounds really gross.
She was pouring it. He was already starved and exhausted, and she's pouring it all over his genitals. They would like beat him while screaming the details of all 3 murders at him to try and get him to confess, being like, "You remember doing this? You remember doing this?" They then administered a spinal tap, otherwise known as a lumbar puncture, without anaesthetic.
Oh my god.
Which he didn't need, of course.
Jesus.
And immediately after ordered a polygraph test, which the polygrapher, thankfully, said it was like completely couldn't be done because he was in too much pain.
He didn't even do it?
Or
he just
said he was in too much pain for an
inconclusive.
accurate reading to be assessed. So
Jesus.
I'm assuming probably because he was just screaming the whole time.
How? Oh my god. Oh, this is so intense. Oh.
The doctor then jumps up and gets involved, and he's like, yo, I've got something. So they inject him with sodium pentothal, which is what is known as truth serum, which actually got used quite a lot in interrogation techniques back then.
Oh my days. This is heavy.
Yep.
Okay.
I probably should have done more research on what what the effects of it are, but it would like put you into a state of delirium.
Yeah, I think that's right. Like, kind of makes you just like really relaxed, but like.
And then like you basically say things you don't mean. You can be led. The questioning can lead you into confessing to things you haven't done.
If it's putting you in like a weird dream-like state,
yeah,
you're, like not really aware.
Delirious is definitely an effect.
Yeah.
And obviously, like, you'd be delirious anyway after all this torture.
Oh, I mean, Jesus, what he's been through, that's horrible.
So, after all this, I think we're some days in, about 15 days in here.
What? To this whole process? How is he still alive?
In it. So, we're about 2 weeks in, and Heirens eventually starts muttering what they think is the beginnings of a confession. Whilst under the influence of the truth serum, Heirens started talking about a man named George who could potentially have committed the murders.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
Starts saying this man George is in his head.
Okay. Can I circle back to Gideon's book? Was it that we pulled off the shelf? Was that was Gideon's thesis? Is that right?
Something like that. He said that, didn't he?
And he was like writing about this case and basically being like, his theory was that it wasn't true.
It wasn't dissociative identity disorder, yeah. Okay. It wasn't multiple personalities.
But that he thinks this guy's innocent? Because to me,
they don't specify that in the show. In fact, from what because when I was watching the show, I was just like, ooh, serial killer. And then when I'm doing my research...
like, this guy didn't do it!
Yeah.
Sorry, there's no way.
Yeah.
He's 17.
But then you said earlier that one of the killings seemed like an almost adolescent response.
Oh, yeah, no.
So when you said that, God. I was like... oh damn, she blew this wide open.
Oh no, I know, but Jesus, that's so like, I don't know.
Yeah. So, where am I? So he's muttering about this man George in his head.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's muttering this man George at this point, and then, so the police start trying to find a George, potentially related to his life by talking to friends, family.
Oh my god, if you're called George, you fucking get out of Chicago.
They don't find anyone called George who is in any way friends, family related to Heirens.
Thank God.
But George is Heirens' middle name.
So his middle name is George.
His middle name is George.
That's interesting.
They couldn't find anyone around in his life to do with the name George. And they're like, oh, it's your middle name. And then he starts muttering that the George is in his head. Here we get into multiple personality disorders.
Which is a thing then in the 40s?
I think it was a thing in the 40s. Yeah. I don't... Do you know what? I was going to do research into that, and to be perfectly honest, I ran out of time.
Fair enough. One for another day.
One for another day, because it is interesting.
Yeah. Fascinating.
And I might be wrong here, but I'm pretty sure there's another episode where multiple personality disorder comes into...
But you would be the one to know.
So, I mean, in 15 seasons, I'd like to think so. Over 250 episodes of the show.
Yeah.
Sorry. So, it was a middle name. So because of this, they took that to be his confession.
Cool. That's really cool.
It is cool, despite the fact that he was drugged and tortured.
God, so
delirious.
Awful. It's horrible.
Bearing in mind they have found no evidence of this guy being at any of the scenes.
And also he had a gun, not a knife.
A gun, not a knife. There was a burglary involved. July 12th, 1946. So this is 17 days after his arrest and period of torture, which is standard apparently.
Okay.
Heirens was indicted for assault with intent to kill, robbery, 23 counts of burglary and 3 counts of murder. And he was to be tried in court as the lipstick killer.
Right.
His handwriting did not match the note that was left on Francis Brown's wall.
Yeah.
Okay. And at the time, the FBI required 12 points of identification to deem fingerprints a 100% match.
12 points from like a single fingerprint.
I guess so, yeah.
Right.
You know,
or 12,
like,
maybe 12 fingerprints.
No, I think it's 12 points on a single fingerprint.
Yeah, right.
So, like, you know, when you see the fingerprint pictures and they've got all the little points.
Yeah.
Well, Heirens had 9.
Great. So the evidence is tenuous at best.
At best, yeah. So, poor fella.
Yeah.
His confession, quote unquote, for the listeners, I'm doing air quotes.
Yeah. Bit visual.
His confession was disputed by several nurses. Who I can only assume must have been uncomfortable with the methods used.
So there was at least some medical professionals who felt uncomfortable because there was like a fucking doctor and a nurse in on the torture.
In it. So
God.
Anyway, it literally gives me like the squirmies to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
So these nurses obviously were a bit uncomfortable with the methods used and the validity of the delirium murmured confession.
Yeah.
Heirens agreed to a full trial, so even though this meant that he risked being sent to the electric chair...
Yeah, because he knew he didn't do it.
Yeah.
So he was like, fucking try me, bitches.
Or either that way, or he was like, you do your worst with me now.
Yeah, he's like you've already tortured me, how much worse could you get?
He was offered a deal of 3 consecutive life sentences if he pled guilty, which he eventually decided to take.
Oh no! Oh my God, this is so tragic.
It's tragic. It's horrible, and like I can only presume that he decided to take that plea deal like due to the fear of the electric chair if he didn't.
Shit.
Which is just a part of the justice system, especially the American justice system, which is just like anytime I hear about it or see it on even a fictional show where they're like, look, take this plea deal and your sentence will be less, and they're like, but I didn't do the thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, but we're not going to be able to argue that for you.
But they do it with everything. They do it with like small violations, like parking fines and stuff like that. Or not parking fines, but like traffic violations and stuff.
This plea deal.
Like, oh, you get the electric chair. No, but I just parked on double yellows. No, but they do it with like, even if it's like a small infraction, they're like, look, just plead guilty, otherwise you'll go to prison for like 6 months. And it's like, but it's like everything. So they just churn people through the system, make them pay fines, plead guilty.
And also it's like, to me it's like the defence just too lazy to try their hardest to get it off, or do they get, like, for this Heirens guy, like at what point are his defence attorneys being like, look, we're really seriously struggling to defend you.
But
he
he won't be paying for their fees, so it's
exactly.
like they're probably
so
like, oh,
they're just state appointed.
Yeah.
So it's just like, look,
and they can't be fucked.
the easiest thing to do is for you just to take this plea deal, and you won't get the chair.
It's really well. I was gonna say it's really tragic. It's really tragic if he definitely didn't do it, which we're both pretty sure he didn't do it.
So he was incarcerated in a maximum security prison for 65 years.
Shit.
During which time he attempted suicide 3 times.
Yeah, well, I'm not surprised.
He maintained his innocence until he died at the age of 83 on March the 12th, 2012. Which was...
Oh my god, that was really recent.
Really recent. It was also... I put this in here, only 3 years before this first episode of the show aired.
Ooh, that's kind of... Oh, that gave me goosebumps. That's kind of spooky.
Spooky dad whoops.
Oh my god.
And at that time, he had been Chicago's longest serving criminal. Yeah. During his time in prison, he recanted his confession, and claimed that he was in fact a victim of police brutality and coercive interrogation.
Yeah, I wonder if the Innocence Project ever considered, like, picking up that case. Oh my god, have you never heard of the Innocence Project? They're like for people who've been good, like this guy, been given life sentences on really like bad like evidence, and they basically work to get people like get their conviction overturned and then released from prison. Oh mate, Innocence Project, they do good stuff.
But he died.
Oh no, but they've been going a long time.
Yeah, okay.
So I wonder if like maybe in the final years of his life whether they ever considered it. But I think they usually take up cases if it's like a family member of the convicted person is like campaigning for them to take up the case, and he maybe didn't have any family. Well,
since his incarceration, there have been a fair amount of inconsistencies found between Heirens' confession and the known facts of the crime, and by a few, there was around 30.
Jesus, that's too many.
So,
1 or 2.
One or 2, yeah, but 30 inconsistencies, the torture, all of it. Ugh. So I can only speak for my own opinion here, but I sincerely think and believe that this man was in fact not the lipstick killer.
Mate, I agree with you. That is fucked.
So at this point, shall we talk about his early life or skip straight to other potential suspects?
I mean, the story is so fucking tragic. I don't know if I want to know that much about it. I was like, oh, I just feel so bad for this guy.
Yeah, I mean, I will say here, like, there wasn't much in his early life. Like, he was raised in a lower socioeconomic family, and his parents were immigrants from Luxembourg. They weren't happy, they constantly argued, blah blah blah, but there was nothing that like struck out as abuse.
Right. You mean that might have led to him being a murderer?
A trauma response, yeah, which it's normally from abusive childhoods.
I guess that kind of makes sense if he didn't fucking do it.
Well, yeah, exactly. He did have an arrest for carrying a gun when he was 13 years old, when his home was searched and they found a number of stolen weapons.
Right.
Some furs, some cameras, some radios and jewellery.
But that would make sense if he was a burglar.
Yes, like, exactly. So all his other offences were theft and burglary.
Which doesn't typically, well, unless you're like caught in the act and you kind of accidentally kill someone, but like, you know, they talk about like escalation from like flashing a woman to raping a woman. Like burglary doesn't tend to lead to like, I mean, I am not a police person.
We are not professionals.
I don't know anything really about anything, but I would assume it doesn't typically lead to being a murderer. So it's certainly not a serial killer.
I mean, he was sent to the Giebelt School for Wayward Boys for several months as a youth. Juvie. And again, later he was arrested for theft, and at that point he was sentenced to 3 years at St. Bede Academy, which was a school run by Benedictine monks.
Oh, right, okay.
Where he excelled as a student and was eventually accepted into the special learning program at the University of Chicago.
He excelled? Wait, that makes it so much sadder.
Yeah. He bypassed high school and started university in the autumn of 1945.
Sorry, he skipped high school and went straight to uni?
Yeah.
Oh my god, so he was like super smart.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, that is such a tragic end then.
His parents were unable to afford the tuition fees, so he worked several evenings to pay his way through. and he resumed his life of theft while he was studying.
Oh, great. Okay.
Which is evident by the arrest that led to his incarceration as the lipstick killer.
Oh, so he was a bit of a klepto then.
Yeah.
He obviously couldn't resist it, because if he was like, maybe he was trying to pay his fees. I don't know. That's really sad, because he obviously had so much potential. Fuck, what a tragic life.
So here are some other potential suspects.
Oh shit, there's other people. Alright, here we go.
So at the time, this guy was an ex-convict. He goes by the name of Richard Russell Thomas.
Okay.
He was previously in an Arizona jail on charges for molesting his own daughter.
Oh, Richard Russell.
He confessed to the Degnam kidnap killing.
What?
Yep. So, the Arizona authorities notified Chicago police.
Wait, I'm trying to think. Okay, Chicago, Arizona.
Arizona down.
Yeah, that's far away.
Arizona authorities notified. I didn't write down when he confessed exactly. Oh no, I did. It was roughly 6 months after the killing.
Right.
We'll get there. So they notified Chicago police. The very next day, detectives flew down to Arizona to investigate. There were some parts of the confession that they thought didn't really match the case. Some parts did. For instance, one of the parts that didn't match, Thomas claimed that he disposed of part of the body in the Southside dump, but no parts of the body were found there.
But wasn't some parts of the body not found ever?
No, I think all the body was found in the end.
Eventually?
Yeah, I think all the body. Her arms were found later.
Got you.
So yeah, no, her entire body was found, but they were like, oh, we never found any in the dump, because all the body parts are found in sewers and drains. After several days of the police not believing him, Thomas recanted his confession. He was like, okay, I didn't do it.
Waste of time. Why
Some
would he
reasons
confess to that, though?
Some reasons to consider that his confession might have been true is that he was in Chicago at the time of the murder.
Was he a butcher?
A handwriting expert cited there was greater similarities between his handwriting and the ransom note than there was of Heirens' handwriting to that ransom note. There were similarities between the ransom note and an extortion note that Thomas had written in a previous crime.
So he loves extorting people.
Love extorting people. He had medical training as a nurse, which matched the profile suggested by police that the unsub had medical training.
Oh my god.
When he was in Chicago, he would frequent a car yard across the street from where one of Susan's limbs had been found.
Stop your face.
My face is still moving. The police dropped their investigation into Thomas when the news came that a young boy had been arrested after a burglary. The young boy being Heirens.
No.
So these guys in Arizona were like, yeah, doesn't really sound like it was you, Thomas. Jumped on back up to Chicago.
Oh my god.
And there's more. Thomas previously had been convicted of an attempted extortion with a ransom note that threatened the kidnapping of a little girl. Thomas had a history of violence, including spousal abuse, and as a nurse, Thomas was known to pretend to be a surgeon. He would boast to friends that he was a doctor, and he was also known to steal surgical supplies.
Oh my god, it's that guy. It's 100% him.
He died in an Arizona prison in 1974.
Well, at least
Since
he was
then,
in prison.
His prison record and confession of the Degner murder have been lost or destroyed.
Oh great. Why was he put in prison?
Another
Probably
crime.
for all the things you just listed.
Another crime. I don't know if he was in prison
Probably
then for the charge of his molesting his daughter, or if he'd already done his time for that. But either way, he was not a good dude.
I mean, clearly. Jeez.
He confessed to the crime.
Why would he confess, though?
I don't know.
Kind of crazy.
Oh, no, it did say, because at the time he was on trial for the molestation of his daughter, and I think if you're going to go to prison, you want to be a murderer more than you want to be a child rapist.
Oh, got you.
They don't like those in prison.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my god, it was... I mean, from everything you just told me, definitely him.
I'm going with him. Out of the two options we've got here, I'm going with him.
Did you say there was another option?
No.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was him. Oh my god, that is a wild story. I've never heard any of that. That is fascinating.
Isn't that wild?
So you've done like previous research on some of the Criminal Minds cases. Did you find that like recently, like for this?
I found this when researching. This.
That's amazing.
Because I was like, the lipstick killer is obviously a case, but obviously he was still alive when this show aired.
And his name is in the show.
Yeah, that's why I researched him.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
God, what a crazy,
scary story.
But it makes sense though that you had that other option, the Richard Russell guy.
Richard Russell Thomas, yeah.
Richard Russell Thomas, and that basically it was all just related to the little girl, because as we said, they don't seem related at all. The murders of the 2 women and the murder
They
of the
don't
little
believe
girl.
that he... Well, I don't believe that he murdered the 2 women.
No.
I think someone totally different murdered the 2 women.
Yeah.
Whether or not it's the same guy or just different people, I don't
Yeah.
know. I think the 2 women was a completely... That was the lipstick killer, quote unquote.
Yeah.
If it was the same one that did both.
Unrelated.
Susan was totally different.
Yeah.
And Heirens did none of them, and this Richard Russell Thomas did Susan.
Yeah.
We don't know who did the others.
Well, great job.
Yeah, wasn't that
Researching.
interesting?
So interesting. I
Yeah.
loved that.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Thank you. This has been fun.
This has been fun.
This has been great fun.
I feel like that was six. Listen, words are very difficult for me today.
We've had some wine.
I've had a little bit. I stopped drinking during yours because I was just fascinated. But I think this was a successful. I can't say that word. Okay, you're gonna have to wrap it up.
A successful podcast. Where are we going?
2-part, second part of part 2. I'm gonna start all over again. I'm quite tired. Are you tired?
Yes.
I feel like we've been going for like 2.5 hours.
Okay, this was a successful part 2 of our 2-part podcast.
There you go. Oh my
On-
god, you got it out.
On Behind the Criminal Minds.
Behind the Criminal Minds. And we will be back next week
Next week.
with episode 2. I don't know the name of episode 2.
Compulsion.
Compulsion. We will be back next week with season 1, episode 2, Compulsion.
Mm-hmm.
And you will be, as always, I will be watching and reviewing, or like synopsizing the episode and discussing it, giving my view.
Your views.
I now know all of the characters' names.
I am impressed.
Reed,
Mm-hmm.
Hotch,
Yes.
with a T, Morgan,
Yep.
Gideon,
Yep.
and Elle.
Yep.
Those are the core bows.
You notice how it's all last names apart from Elle.
Yeah, but she's a woman. She doesn't deserve a last name.
Deserve a last name. Do you know any of their first names?
No.
That's not come up
Is
yet.
Gideon not a first name?
No, it's not his first name.
Is it not?
No.
But it is a first
It
name.
must be, because they were talking baby names.
Well, there we go. L something and something Reed, something Morgan, something Hodge, and something Gideon. And maybe we'll find out in due course.
I'm
And-
excited. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Ooh.
and then you will be back with the research.
I will be.
Well done, great research.
Well done. Great rewatch.
Gosh, you guys. Thank you, and remember to follow us on social media.
Yep.
If we've got that set up. Google.
And feel free to drop us an email just to discuss anything you'd like to about
Yeah.
the case.
Yeah.
William Heirens, your thoughts, comments. Do you think he is innocent?
Yeah. Did he do it?
Who was the lipstick killer?
Yeah. Who's your favourite character?
And if you've got any research that I did not
Yes.
bring up, because I
Anything in the
Can't
episode
remember.
that we missed? Anything really.
behind the criminal minds at gmail.com.
With an S. Minds.
Minds.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Bye.